Oh, right on. Mike.
Sounds good. Having any seats up there, I don't think. Ready now?
All right, we'll go ahead and call this town council meeting together. Today is May 5th. It's right at 4 o'clock. And I'll start with just a roll call. Who's here?
Brett Hornsby.
Spencer Wade, Josh Ewing,
Jennifer Davila.
Gary Haas.
Erin Nelson, serving as town manager.
Maria Collins, administrative director.
Good deal. Got the roll call down. Wondering if folks got a chance to look at the meeting minutes from April 21st. I did not see anything that I felt needed corrected, but did anybody else see anything?
It's good to me.
Hearing none, all in favor of approving the town council meeting minutes of April 21st as drafted, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have approved minutes. We'll now move to the public comment period of the agenda. As we normally do during our normal sessions, we have opportunity for members of the public to provide comments. Ask you to keep them to 3 minutes if you can. There are a number of items on our agenda that we will have multiple public hearings and other opportunities. And so lots of opportunities for people to comment. And so if your 3 minutes isn't enough, feel free to talk to us afterwards and we'll make sure that there are more opportunities. For those of you who are online, if you would like to make a comment, if you wouldn't mind dropping your name in the chat or just saying or raising your hand, that little hand button on Zoom. We're going to start with the folks in the room here. If anybody in the room here live wants to make a comment, and then we'll go to the folks online. So you have just a minute, but if you can just put your name in the chat or raise your hand if you're online, if you want to make a comment. Anybody here want to make a comment? See Gary, anybody else? Okay, Gary, you're up first.
Thank you, Josh and Town Council. My name is Gary Lichtenstein. I'm a Bluff homeowner. And I've been a Bluff volunteer firefighter since I moved to town in 1998. I've served the roles of captain, chaplain, and assistant chief. My day job for 30 years has been as the owner of Quality Evaluation Designs, a firm that conducts program evaluation for universities, school districts, and state and federal agencies. Also strategic planning. I also have 13 years experience in higher ed administration and extensive experience starting education programs and social entrepreneurship ventures. As Bluff Fire Assistant Chief, I explored our town's significant challenge of building a sustainable fire department. I contacted fire chiefs and board chairs throughout the state who manage departments in small towns like ours with limited populations. I will share right now some of the questions that my exploration has led to, and hopefully I hear them framed. I hope they will help frame the conversations coming up. What is the town promising residents and especially businesses which shoulder the heaviest load with the $50,000 property tax increase? After paying your part-time manager $20,000 or $25,000, that leaves $25,000 for equipment. Maybe we could outfit a brush truck with that amount or buy something for the ambulance, pay for truck repairs. I haven't heard these discussions. How will fire and EMS be staffed? This is a huge question here and nationwide, especially in small rural towns. For those not clued in, Bluff Fire and EMS operate with skeleton crews. Our department is based on a pre-COVID model that worked great into the turn of the century. Now we struggle not just to recruit, but to engage those who are already on our roster. We have between 12 to 15 firefighters on our roster, but only about 5 are active, 3 of whom are on the cusp of retirement, with about 3 to 5 more being minimally active. What is the administrative structure? If the town council is proposing an EMS manager, then presumably the fire department and possibly EMS fall under the town. Is Bluff prepared to pay for the liability of that and even more be responsible for sufficient annual budgeting? And finally, what does it cost to run a sustainable fire department? Have you run the numbers? My figures show a minimum cost of $230,000 a year. because it doesn't cost much less to run a department for a town of 5,000 than it does for a town of 200. Is 50,000 enough? Is it too much for what we get? I hope to hear these issues addressed in today's discussion and those following. One of my mentors once said to me that big money follows big ideas. For EMS, 50,000 is not big money. Some will say it's too much. I would say it's not enough. The only way to determine the value to residents and business owners in Bluff is to ask first, what are the outcomes that we plan to achieve? Thank you.
Gary. Very thoughtful and also super well timed. I looked down to see where you're at, and you're at the 3 minutes. I'm gonna just briefly respond, and we're just starting this conversation. Actually gonna have an open house on May 19th, where we'll have more discussion on it. So all very good points, and good things for us all to be thinking about. I'm happy to share a little bit more offline too, first pass back and forth, because 3 minutes so far. Do we have anybody online that has raised their hand or put in the chat? I don't see anything, do you?
Don't show it.
Okay. All right, well, we'll always provide more opportunity for public comment and engagement. And that we'll be able to move on to the next meeting on our item on our agenda, which is to invite Jeremy Hogarth from San Juan County to talk to us a little bit. Thanks for making the trip down. I really appreciate you coming down from Monticello.
Yeah.
It's an important issue that we're excited to hear from you about.
You should have painted this chair red.
Yeah, that share the hot seat, it's so that people online can like actually hear and stuff. We're not super high tech around here, but
I
anyway.
was gonna just hand this out. Sorry, I print things. I love things not printed, but I think this is one of those things. This is just a rough draft of a fact sheet that we've kind of put together. It's just a draft, like I said. If anybody else wants some, have extra. But I just wanted to give you guys a report. A lot of beep.
Yeah, when people join on Zoom, it makes that sound, so it just means more people are listening to you.
Hey, that's all good. So just kind of give you an update from San Juan County EMS's perspective and kind of our plans, which like I just handed out, one of our plans this year. And I've talked to Aaron pretty extensively about is, we're running a sales tax campaign. So we'll talk about maybe why we need to do that or why we feel like we need to do that. And then certainly any questions you guys have for me that I can answer, I would love to answer them. If I don't know the answer, I promise you I will find it out. So-
Why are you not?
Sorry, someone need to be muted.
Okay. So I just wanted to kind of start out. We have obviously an incredibly dedicated staff. We do not, have any problems or things that are different than anybody else in rural EMS throughout the nation. But we have an incredibly dedicated staff. Combined on-call time in 2025 with our staff was around 54,000 hours that were either paid on call or paid out from our staff. And we have a five full-time staff and 35 part-time staff ranging in all certification levels. We are a paramedic agency as available. So whenever we do have a paramedic available for the truck, it upgrades to that staff, which I think is pretty amazing considering the rural nature of where we live. We staff 2 transporting ambulances 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we staff, I should preface that, we have been able to, with some creativity, get Bluff's ambulance license to transport when available. So as you know, it's no secret, we have 2 amazing dedicated providers behind me that when they're here, they can respond and also transport in that truck. When they're not, and we have somebody else, then we can still use it as a first responder ambulance. And we always have a backup ambulance en route behind them that could be canceled if they don't need to respond. So some of the history in 2024 in the legislative session for Utah, Senate Bill 215 was passed. basically grants authority and requires municipalities and counties to ensure that a minimum level of ground ambulance services are available to their community. What that means is just like you're required by law to have a fire department, up until 2024, you were not required to have an ambulance service. As of 2024, you are. San Juan County has ultimately borne the brunt of that cost. And just looking at different ideas of how we're going to continue and be sustainable into the future. With that Senate bill that passed, the unfortunate part is there's only a couple of options that they really put out there for funding. They said, hey, you're responsible, but there's no real options to that. So you, as you know, and it sounds like you're going to be talking about some of these things. We'll cover those in just a sec, but San Juan County EMS's budget for 2026. We're budgeted at just about $1,060,000, and that's our target for our expenses. Our projected income falls short of that at about 707,309. Our projected staffing costs are always our highest at about 734,636. And then it leaves the balance of our projected operating costs is about $360,000. We do and have in the past received a supplement that comes from the general fund. We're trying to get away from that because it's just general fund money. It's not a sustainable way, and it only goes to the minimum. So it only takes us to that minimum benchmark. It doesn't allow for us to grow or to make any improvements in the system. Annual ambulance volumes. We serve about a 5,000 square mile, obviously the largest land mass in Utah with the least amount of population, as you guys are aware. Our average response time is about 5.7 minutes. That's kind of county-wide for the time it takes us to leave the station. Many of our providers are still, even though we have several full-time, many of them are still on call, paid on call, and they respond from home. We have a pretty typical volume for our rural population density. Last year, we responded to 591 calls, up slightly from 2024. Of those 591 calls, we transported 449 patients. We only bill for patients we transport, and 142 of those patients were non-billable that we obviously just either not transport or some other circumstance they didn't need us, or they may have passed away prior to or during we didn't transport them because we don't take people that pass away in the ambulance. One thing that we've been tracking, we went back several years, and so we have 3 years of really good data. We know now that about 37% of our call volume is from people that are visiting or outside of our service area. So they do not reside in the zip codes we serve. We serve Monticello, Blanding, Bluff, Mexican Hat. Those are and LaSalle, sorry. Those are the zip codes that San Juan County EMS serves. We have partners with UNH where you help them, they help us, but we don't serve the reservation. So some of the key challenges that we've identified as we've looked at all of this data is that we have a really low call volume. I just heard it mentioned with your fire department. It costs the same amount to provide a fire department for a town of 5,000 as it does for a town of 200. And that's an absolutely true statement. Same goes for EMS. If we had 1,200 calls a year, it would cost us no more money than it costs us to have 591. So that puts our fixed costs for each call that we respond to. We just did really simple math, just divided our budget by what the number of calls. We come about $1,670 per call is basically what it costs us. On average, we collect about $700 per call. So you can see there's obviously a disparity. Some of the problems or things we have identified as challenges, we have an inadequate reimbursement system, and this is not unique to Utah or rural Utah versus urban. EMS systems are only profitable based on volume, and that's why urban EMS systems can be sustainable. They're all tax funded, but it's a little bit easier if you have all that volume. The other thing that we looked at was our Medicare, Medicaid reimbursements. About 64% of our annual or our calls that we respond to are Medicare, Medicaid patients. We collect about 30, sometimes 40% if we're lucky on those bills. We have a workforce shortage, as we're all aware. Everybody's doing multiple jobs. We have amazing providers, but we have competing jobs, and then training requirements and burnout continue to be significant challenges we have to get over. We have long transport times comparative to other places in other areas. We have, oh darn, lost my spot. Rising costs. The other thing we've identified over the last few years, ambulances several years ago were ridiculously priced at about $200,000. Today, they're even more ridiculously priced at about $350,000. I'm sure the same would go with your fire. If you're trying to even think about looking at a fire truck, they're ridiculous as ambulances or more. We have staff coming from other areas or from out of the area. So more and more of our staffs, we're having to bring them in from outside the area just because of the challenges we have trying to get people at a local level. Just as a point of information, a full-time ALS, so Advanced Life Support Ambulance Service in the state of Utah for one ambulance, full-time, meaning you have full-time providers paid, sitting at a station, getting paid hour for hour, costs about $1.2 million per year is the cost of that service. Obviously, we're doing it for much, much less. So we identified three options when we looked at the funding. One, and the one I don't like the most, but we say it's true. And if we don't do something, this might be our best option, is to cut services. We are pretty skeleton right now, so we don't know where that would happen, but we do run into those occasions where without the staffing and the support, we will have times when we're gonna have less ambulances available. Option number two is a property tax increase, certainly on the table. However, that affects only you and me and the people that live within the town, the city or town limits or city limits in our other areas that we serve. And so what we did is we identified there's a rural healthcare sales tax that is an option for EMS. I have went to the county commission. We have their support 100% on this issue. We feel like it's the most fair way to try to fund EMS into the future. It allows us to share that burden so that those 37% of our calls that are visitors can help bear part of that cost. So our funding recommendation as we move forward is we're running this sales tax campaign. We have certainly need and appreciate and can't do this alone, so we need your guys' support in this. We are recommending that we do a 1%, that you can go anywhere from 0.25 to 1. At the advice of the commission, and actually trying to fix problems and solve this issue, or at least get ahead of it for sometime we've never been. We're going to do the 1%. The part about that we really like about the sales tax option as well is it is not a tax on food, so non-prepared food, which you don't have a grocery store. It's not quite as, but you do travel out of the area and everywhere you go. And also inside of Utah or San Juan County would not be taxed on food, fuel, or prescription medications. So we really tried the bill really tries to be cognizant and aware of our, lower income population, and sales tax is something you can, for the most part, choose. A lot of the things we buy, we do choose to buy those versus an absolute necessity. Unlike the property tax, like we already talked about, it does spread that burden from our, with our residents, visitors, transients. And then we do estimate that revenue of the dedicated sales tax would generate about $1.2 million. And so you might say, well, that's a lot compared to where your budget is, and it is. However, some of the things we'd like to do with that is, of course, we're identifying the need for more full-time people. EMS needs and should be looked at as a profession, not just we volunteer this thing to death. The training requirements alone are pretty insane. And we need to be compensating people for that. So we are looking to add additional full-time staff, which would have an ultimate benefit to the town of Bluff as well, even if those are coming from other places. We do have full-time staff in Monday through Friday in Blanding now, and we've seen already the reduction in our response time from that 5 to 6 minute mark to the 1 to 2 minute mark, just getting them out because they're at the station during normal like 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. hours. The other things that we would do is, of course, we want to reduce our response times, and then we need, because we've never had one, we need to establish a replacement fund and schedule for our equipment and our ambulances. The newest ambulances we have in our fleet, which are certainly not sitting in Bluff, my apologies for that, but they're 2019s. The oldest ambulance we have is a 2002. And we have, with the 6 of them, we've got to do something to start trying to getting those on a replacement schedule. And then, of course, we have to consider some station improvements, especially as we're bringing people in from outside the area, that they have somewhere to be and stay. We do not have those as options right now. So what do we need from you? We need people to help champion this sales tax initiative with us to make sure that the public's aware. Number one, that they do not and have not up until, if this passes, ever paid for EMS. I guess you could say at some tiny percentage, with the general fund now we are. But up until now, this is the supplement that's been generated from EMS has been on the backs of the volunteers or the backs of the providers. I did some really quick math at that 54,000 hours. If we were to take that and look at the average volunteer hour in Utah, just Google it really quick. What's the volunteer hour in Utah worth? It's worth $38 and some change. We're at $1.9 million worth of subsidy that the people, that are just in our group have given to this. So they've done their part as far as giving back to their communities. And we really want and need the help of the communities to give back to those people that have done that for so long. Other than that, that's what we really need is we need champions at the town and city levels to help educate the public on what we're trying to do. I would certainly, if there's any questions, love to answer them. If you don't, Erin does have my number. She knows how to get a hold of me if something comes up in the future, so.
I got a few questions.
Yeah.
Wonder if other folks do first, though. So has the commission formally decided to do this yet? Like, did they take the vote to put it on the ballot? Like, it's for sure gonna be on the ballot in the fall?
It was at a work meeting, but yes, I mean, verbal confirmation, and we have their support.
So they need to go through the formal
Yep.
process, but it
Yep.
will be on the ballot.
But
in the fall.
it will be on the ballot this fall.
Aaron, maybe you can help me out with this, but if I think of the math right. So our resort tax that we get, it's 1% of the sales tax in Bluff, right?
Yes.
Right? So whatever our resort tax brings in, that's basically how much we would be contributing to the overall. Look at it for me. It's in our budget that we're looking at tonight, I think. Anyway, I think like. Bluff's really small, like population, right? 250 something people, but we generate way more sales tax than that. Which is only to say that like it's, Bluff this is a place where Bluff can contribute to the greater county good, I think in a strong way. But it also does have an impact for, our hoteliers and so forth who, are gonna, essentially raises their rate by another 1%.
Yep.
But, I think in a lot of ways, in my opinion, this is a great way to go about seeing if we can, Bluff and support having a better EMS system in the county. So I'm not gonna speak for the council, but I'm really excited that you guys are moving forward with this. And I think you're right, it's gonna take some work to make sure it passes.
Yeah.
Um. I don't think I caught, did you say how much the general fund, the San Juan County General Fund is putting in right now?
Right now, it varies, of course, as year to year, and our expected income can vary as well, because we don't know. Is of course, you just like you're kind of throwing a dart at a board and hoping that it sticks. But right now, it's just a little bit under 300,000 is what they are projected, and I believe we had about the same. It was just still under 300,000 this last year, which are both coincidentally lower amounts than we've had in the future. Even though our expenses have actually went up, but we've been able to offset that with some, of course, we look at everything, grant opportunities, increasing our revenues as far as collectibles. We've done amazing things with our staff to try to get them to documenting and all of the things that we worked with our billing company to, which may have just added a 1%, but that 1% over, our $2 million worth of billing, or more, kind of helps offset a little bit of that. So
Is the idea is if this passed and we start generating 1.2 million in sales tax for this, that 300K from the county maybe wouldn't have to be contributed?
correct. We would still, and I've talked to the county because I wanted it to be clear, we are still want to and be entitled to our TRT money that comes from there because it is a visitor offset. But as far as the general fund money that's coming out of the general fund for the county, it is our goal that we would not be taking that money anymore.
So it could go to
Other things, yes. And hopefully, ultimately, we would avoid or potentially could avoid, another tax increase at the county level on our property taxes, because we can shuffle those things around to be more self-sustaining. This would make us, in all essence, self-sustaining for the foreseeable future.
And that plays into, we've had discussions last year regarding the municipalities paying directly to the county for EMS. Figures thrown around in the $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 range for Bluff. They're on up for larger population municipalities. And so in speaking with Jeremy, at this point in time, that would be removed from the table as a, potential revenue source. And overall, would benefit us and not having to take that out of our general fund.
Certainly makes us partners more so than we are today. San Juan County, which we are all from San Juan County, me too, but they are bearing the brunt, that they're bearing the 100% of the expense of this service. And so it would be nice. I'm excited to give some of that expense to the visitors, not to just pick on visitors. That's certainly not my thing, but there is an impact to our system. They do impact, especially EMS, as we know now, at nearly 40% of our calls. That only leaves 60% of us, that are calling 911. So
my last question is, when you said we're running a campaign, is it kind of like friends of the EMS, or like who's gonna print out the bill, like the lawn signs and stuff? Like, I know, like Town of Bluff couldn't with town money
that's
do it, but
the same problem we have is we will not use our money, San Juan County EMS's or San Juan County's money to do that. So with that, we are, seeking out partners that are going to be able to help us maybe with some, just a little grassroots fundraising, and to make sure that there's a definition between that so that there's not confusion about us trying to use taxpayer money to try to get a tax campaign. That's certainly not.
But theoretically, if there was a mayor that wanted to contribute to the campaign, who would they write a check to?
I'm gonna get back to that mayor on that, because I don't have, that's the part, like, you're the, not by any coincidence, but you're the last stop. I mean, it just kind of worked out that way, and I met with Aaron. And then we got this meeting together, and there was a little bit behind the 8 ball. A lot of things are moving. It's a moving puzzle all the time. But certainly now, my next goal, the thing I'm trying to find out right now is I want a proposition number. So I'm working with the county and through the elections to get that, because I think that's really important for us to have, like, what are we advertising? So that's the first thing. And then the next thing is we are trying to get an organization, or organize something together that can say, this is where we're going to put that small amount of funds in, so we can buy some yard signs and some pamphlets and such, and we're not printing them out at the county. So if there's people interested, then we'll certainly be in touch, because that's where we're definitely going to need the help coming back.
Sorry, I asked a ton of questions there. Other questions from the council?
Yeah, do you have any examples of other communities that have done this, or?
Yeah, great question, actually, and I'm sorry, I apologize, I missed it. So right now, Wayne County does it. Wasatch County, which we don't compare to, but very successfully. Summit County successfully. Grand County, Moab, does this, and it was a game changer for them. They were on the verge. They nearly had to cut back an ambulance and really cut their service back last year. And luckily this passed by a pretty good margin down there, and help them stabilize that system. Garfield County, and so there are some very similar sized, financially, counties that it's one of those things. Beaver City did their own through the city, but it's the only way. There's just there's so few options for EMS funding. Did that answer your question?
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Did you look up what our resort tax rate is?
Yeah, it would be just under 150,000 annually,
So of that 1.2 would be.
125 to
Yeah.
150.
It's not insignificant by any means.
It's certainly a lot more than if we were just asked to directly contribute.
Yes, that's very good.
Property tax, like our tax base is not that big.
Yeah.
Period speaking, yeah. Any other questions? Well, just again, thanks Jeremy for coming down, filling in on this exciting development. Reach out to said Bluff Mayor if I can help. And yeah, thanks again for coming down.
Yeah, if anything, like I said, comes up, Aaron does have my contact information. And I would love to answer any questions that if they come up later. I appreciate you guys' time.
Something you can distribute to residents as well. I think I've got the electronic version that I can post. Fantastic. Well,
Yeah, we're just in the first part. I'm trying to get some electronic and some social media stuff going that doesn't cost us money. Start moving that along, so.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
All right, thanks for that. We're gonna move on to some unfinished business, which hopefully we can try to power through, given how much we got on our agenda. And I was grateful for that update, but obviously it took a little bit of time, so. And Jeremy, feel free to take off if you need to. There's another. So yeah, we got the disconnection finally finalized. So Aaron, what's any,
finished up.
got a certificate?
Yes, so we have the certificate, disconnection of 5,310.07 acres. Cause there's a lot of surveying back and forth. The lieutenant governor did certify that, so I thought originally it was certified back on the date that we submitted the application, which was back in February. But it is actually certified on April 24th, that disconnection. Now, you might have seen on an earlier version of the agenda that went out last week to council members that we also had like the roads manifest and taking on Copper Cliffs 2 and everything. Mr. Simpson was he's unable to join us tonight. So that road manifest, I'm hoping that we can talk about at the end of the meeting to reschedule that for approval. But with this just going through on April 24th, I think as long as we have something to the state, to UDOT, with an update to our roads within like the next week, 10 days or so, we should be in really good shape. But that is all finalized. Legal counsel has copies of all of the disconnection papers as well. And I asked Kathy today to please file them in a box and write, Aaron, do not open, because I do not want to see it. but it is finalized, so we're in good shape. Thank you.
All right, we got it. I guess we got some sealed bids we need to open, Malia?
Sure do. Yeah, we have so many things to open, but it's gonna be good. Jen, I'm gonna ask you to record for us. First is window, correct? So these were not sealed, so I'm gonna just move these on quickly.
Wait.
On the agenda, we had fires.
Oh, fires first. Okay. Here it is, guys. So Jen, let me know when you're ready.
Go ahead.
So a quick introduction.
So we-
Malia put out the RFP for fire suppression, design and installation. It's a combo bid. So Malia, you have received
I've received one bid,
one bid.
so here we go. It is from Simon. I see some good things here. We have licensure, we have insurance. What we like to see. Yes, this is the page I was looking for. All right. So the page that we requested. So it is System Service Specialist, Inc. So looks like they broke it into many things. Oh my, okay. Wow. So for design, we're looking at 89,250. For fire alarm, we're at 58,500. For the underground work, 54,750. For kitchen hood, 1,550. And fire extinguisher cabinets. See price above, unsure of cabinet count. So 145 per cabinet plus 500 to install all of them. So that'll be a final, not totally sure on that one.
Do they have a total listed?
No, are you ready? Can I give you a few?
Yeah.
89,250. 58,500. 54,750. And then 1,550.
And then TBD.
And then to BD, I mean, max, let's just put an extra 2,000 for that one.
Well, let me leave that off. So that would come to a total of 200. $4,050, 204050.
Woo! I personally am stoked to see that number.
I am too. I am too. With that being said, there is only one bid. Malia did go through the full RFP process. There were two companies who came to the mandatory pre-bid meeting. For all sealed bids, we want to make it a very fair process. That's why, sealed, she answered all the questions. Because you're just getting this information, it's important that she goes through with design review committee members and analyzes we received a complete application. So it's not a given that we would go with this company. So you'll do all your due diligence there.
But you'll do the due diligence, and then come back to us, say your recommendation was X, and we make a decision.
Yeah, I'll meet with design review committee before our meeting on Thursday, which you guys will vote, and I'll have my recommendation, and that evaluation criteria will be filled out as it usually is.
Would you also include in your recommendation, just something regarding the number of bids received in reference to we're a very rural area, what you did to try to obtain bids and solicit the project? I'd like to see a total of the number of people you reached out to ensure that council knows that due diligence was done to get bids.
For sure,
Thank you.
I can do that. Easy, it's all filed away.
I know it is.
Okay,
Cool.
and then,
Next, window replacement.
okay, so this was not a sealed bid, this is just received, and there's bid packets actually in your agenda packet, but I went ahead and printed these off to make life easy. We have TWS Construction. And their total is 37,700. Let me know when you're ready.
Whatever.
Utah Window Experts. 12,984 and 3 cents.
12,984.03.
Yes,
Utah Window Experts.
experts, yes. And then Clarity Glass LLC at 36,500.
Verification that all of those, it was all of the windows, all the firms, there wasn't anything left out or anything. These are-
Correct, yep, I have actually already gone through these and given them ratings and things, so things to be discussed. I'll scan all this information in for you guys to review, and then once again, DRC will talk about it, and I'll have my recommendation for you Thursday. And I can also do the same, show the due diligence on this one, although we did receive 3 bids, which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And selective demolition.
Right, selective demolition, we also received 3 bids for this one. Pueblo Tierra Construction at 119,800. DRL Enterprises at 79,250. And TWS Construction Inc. at $145,800.
100.
145,800.
So is the idea you're reviewing all this and then on Thursday, the purpose of the special meeting Thursday is to go through and make decisions on all 3 of them?
Correct. Yep, to award all 3 of those. And then we will have awarded all of the funds for our GOEO grant, which terms at the end of June. So we're doing great. It's gonna
You're doing
happen.
great. That's a
And
very
everybody
good-
is actually within our project completion. So it's gonna happen, guys.
Okay.
Impressive push based on where we were.
Absolutely, yeah.
Good work.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Very good work.
And last under unfinished business is an update on building department staffing.
Yes, so as you all know, the last month or so, Blanding City has been assisting us with building inspections. We do have some invoices from them. But they are unable to continue, due to their bandwidth, their inspectors' bandwidth, they're unable to continue in any kind of long-term, interlocal agreement at this point in time. I'm hoping that, that could be something that we could still look at in the future. However, did have the job posting out there. We had 1 applicant, his name is Ben Tomko. Ben served as a building inspector for San Juan County before leaving to become a sheriff's deputy. He has all of his certifications with the exception of the 40-hour class required for like a building official. But he has all of his residential and commercial certifications. And based on his experience and background is quite experienced, which is really nice. So he has been extended a job offer, which he accepted. He'll start on Friday, May 8th. We are going to get him some additional equipment, including his own email address, as well as a device to ensure that like he can go out and like take pictures in the field and complete all of the inspection documentation in the field. That was something that we were kind of running into. So a little bit of a learning curve there. But he'll be coming online this weekend. There are a few like transition items that Blanding may still help us with this week. You were seeing probably a lot of construction in town on some of our commercial sites. All those inspections are getting done. Thank you, Blanding. But then we'll start, Kristen Bushnell will still serve as our permit technician. Her job is to ensure that, answering quick, simple questions about processes, how people submit their applications, and ensuring applications are complete before passing them along to Ben, who will be doing, all of the reviews, all of the inspections. He'll be doing the scheduling and things like that. The job offer is in line with this year's fiscal budget as well as next year's fiscal budget for both of those building department individuals. And, ultimately, this does put us back in a position where Bluff is able to handle, our own code and our own, building, inspection needs. Any questions or concerns? Clarifications?
No, just to say, thanks for all the hard work to help fill this gap. It's been, interesting couple of months trying to make sure we're covering those bases. It sounds like a good option for us.
And Ben does live a little bit closer than Corey did, so he's up in Blanding. So it's not gonna be quite as difficult. But, big call out to Kristen as well. She's done a lot of work really since January to ensure that the department was still, getting done what they needed to get done. And so this should just kind of clean this up and have a fully functional department again. Please reach out to building@townofbluffutah.gov if you've got any questions. That's up on the website as well. And Kristen will get you started with the process, answer any of those basic questions if folks have anything.
And then just a point that we should all share with folks that we know around town, which is just like being a small town and our building inspector actually having another job, like this isn't his all full-time job. It's not gonna be like he's gonna be able to come down and do an inspection the same day, like people are gonna have to build this into their schedules. And, we hear good things about Ben and his responsiveness, but there's just a limit, he's not gonna be a full-time person, so. Encouraging people to think ahead and try to plan for this stuff so that their inspections can happen in a timely way.
That's a big one, and we've still had people reaching out same day, or they've already completed the work and they're like, we need an inspection. You have to follow the process. We have it built into the fee schedule, we have it built into the code. We are gonna start charging those penalty fees, the double thing. If you don't have that building, if you did not get your building permit, and now you want the inspection done, that's not flying anymore. I mean, I never did, but we're asking the building department to ensure, everything's up to code. You have to follow the process. So
Get a building permit before you build?
it's shocking.
Okay.
It's very weird. But yeah, so I really need the public to know that. And so if you all who are hearing this and council, if you have anyone who's confused about that process, please send them to us. We want to help. We don't want to get the stick. We want the carrot of how can we help get people through their projects. Thank you.
Good deal. Thanks for the update. Okay, I am gonna apologize in advance for this next part of the agenda. Blame the Utah legislature, don't blame me. But there were a couple of bills that passed in this last legislative session. I think really good intention. But the idea is the legislature really wants the public to know early and often that a potential property tax increase is being proposed. And so it used to be, some people wouldn't find out maybe until the truth in taxation process, like way later on in the year in August. And now they're really wanting people to know right away, including in the first meeting in May. So today is the first meeting in May. We've talked about a budget that includes a property tax increase. And so to cover our bases, in the case that we decide to go forward with it, we've got to do all this process. So bear with me. So the first agenda item, number 6, is to express the intention of the budget officer to make a statement that the town of Bluffs is proposing a tentative budget that includes a property tax increase for the fiscal year 2026. So that just 2026, 27, fiscal year 27. So just everyone, it's my intention to make such a statement. Okay, now I'm going to make the statement. We are presenting an impact statement that the town of Bluff is proposing a tentative budget for fiscal year 27 that includes a property tax increase of $50,000 to fund emergency services, including an emergency services administrative manager. And if the tax rate is increased, if this tax rate increase is pursued, the town of Bluff will hold duly noticed public hearings, hearing on the increase. So we will go through the truth in taxation process. All right, made the statement that it has it there. Okay, now I've got to read off these. So I know you guys can read, everybody online can read, but I'm going to read it for the record. Town of Bluff is considering levying a property tax increase that exceeds the certified tax rate currently. This would increase the certified tax rate from 0.0005451104 to approximately 0.00113663. If you have questions about what that means, we're going to answer those in a public meeting, but this additional tax revenue generated by the proposed increase would be $50,000. So we'll be adding $50,000 to our budget, resulting in a total proposed collection of $83,186 for the town of Bluff. The approximate percentage increase of ad valorem tax revenue generated by the proposed property tax increase is 151%. That's just 151% on the Bluff portion of property taxes. The additional tax revenue generated by the proposed tax increase will fund a part-time emergency services administrative manager position, as well as support routine maintenance, equipment, and expenses for emergency services. When we say emergency services, we basically mean fire and EMS supporting. The town of Bluff will provide notice of and conduct a public hearing at which members of the public will have the opportunity to provide comments specifically regarding the proposed property tax rate increase. The public hearing will take place in early August of 2026 at the Bluff Community Center, 190 North, 3rd East, in here in Bluff, as well as virtually via Zoom. So people will be able to participate virtually if they want. We have to coordinate that meeting with San Juan County to identify the specific date of the public hearing, and we'll make sure that's out. So all this information is also on our website. Aaron did a great job getting that all up on the website, so plenty of information there. This property impact fee schedule is in the agenda on the website. This is what the Utah League of Cities and Towns ran by the tax commission and said, if you provide that statement, you're going to meet the requirements of the law. I'm not going to read all of it because everybody can read it, and I don't need to read this into the record. It's in the agenda. But I think from a super high level, what's helpful to think is while the property tax revenue would increase by 151%, if you were looking at an average market value residence in Bluff, which according to the assessors is $233,000, that would be an increase of $105 annually. So the average average homeowner would be paying $105 more next year than this year. Now, these are estimated numbers because we don't have all the inputs yet from the county. We don't have the latest evaluations of Bluff and so forth. So these are just estimated.
And to note, that is because like the way that the timeline goes, no one has that information. So no one in the state of Utah has that updated property tax assessed value. The law requires us to start this process right now. And then as we get further into the year, then that's why the public hearings are held like in the month of August, because we'll have that updated information. We're not trying to come out and say this is estimated because we're just estimating it. It's estimated because we don't get that information, anyone in the state, until later on in the year. This is the data we have now.
So for perspective, if you had a $500,000 home, you'd pay $225 more a year to the town of Bluff. Businesses basically pay at a bit of a higher rate because they don't get the primary residential exemption that a homeowner does. But the average business property of a value of $443,000, their tax to the town of Bluff would increase by about $364 a year. $1 million business property, the increase would be about $1,300 a year. So it just gives you a sense of kind of the scale of what people would pay additionally. So, any questions from the council on this part of the process or how these numbers are turned out right now? Want to emphasize that we are required to do this even to consider it. So like we couldn't come up a month from now and be like, we want to do a property tax. Like, no, you missed the ball. You don't say it in your first meeting in May, you don't have the chance to do this. So if we decide not to do it as a council, that's okay. We can decide not to do this, But if we have a chance to do it, we had to go through all these steps. So we've got lots of opportunity to hear from the public on this and make an informed decision. But we're telegraphing that this is an issue so that folks in the public can understand.
In this process, do we have to stay with like the emergency, for instance, like, can we make changes like that as we go, or do we have to stick with what the state is doing?
So that is an interesting question, and I probably would have to reach out to the league. I think like it's very likely, as long as you used it for like emergency services, you'd probably be fine. And like if you decided not to do it for a position, but you decided instead buy stuff, as long as it's for that budget category of emergency services, which we haven't broken out in our budget now as a separate budget category. I don't think you would have to do the hire necessarily, but you would have to spend it on emergency services. You couldn't just be like, we're just gonna put it in the budget and spend it on parks or something like that. Like you do need to spend it in the budget department that you're on.
Could we adapt it if, say, we got like public, say there was publics, like they were fine with the increase, but not fine with spending it on that? Like, could we change that part later, or are we stuck with that now?
Change it to what?
Just, I don't know, like, say we got.
To parks?
No, well, yeah, like, yeah, that's not what I would do with it.
But just for
Well,
sake of argument, like, could we in the future change it to something like completely outside of that category?
Like, or yeah, like if town came in and they, and people, I'm not thinking of it, you know, came up.
I think my answer would be, from my best understanding, which we could go get more on this, is that I think as long as we were putting it toward emergency services.
Okay.
Within that range, we probably could, but if we strayed from that, that would be problematic.
Okay.
Now, there is nothing to say that, 3 years from now, you still have to put that money toward exactly that thing. Right? Like, it's just that property tax is now gonna go into the general fund. And so if 3 years from now, we determined, we need it for something else, I think then you could do whatever you want, but you at least initially, you need to spend it on what you tell people you're roughly gonna spend it on.
Could we? If we were to decide on this and decided on a lesser amount? Does that still qualify with the truth in taxation? Like say we talk about it a lot or whatever and decide that really we only need 30,000, need to raise $30,000. Could we then just adjust the tax increase to account for the $30,000 instead of the 50,000?
Yeah, I think that's totally safe, because basically the way the process will happen is we'll adopt a budget later on, or formally adopt the budget, and yeah, no one's gonna get a hassle if we're taxing people less.
Right, right.
We couldn't.
We
go
couldn't
more,
increase
couldn't
it,
go
but we
more,
could
but we
do
could
less
decrease it. Yeah,
if we felt that it was warranted to do so. Okay.
yeah. So
Just to clarify, just that first fiscal year, that money has to go into what we're saying we're putting it towards.
yeah,
Then after that fiscal year, it could change.
yeah, I think it could change, although, to be honest, like,
Not
what the
that,
what the League of Cities and Towns would say is, if you start doing too much, if towns start doing too much, like raising taxes for one thing and then spending it on something else, then the legislature may, restrict our ability to raise taxes. So like, it wouldn't be a best practice, for us, for example, like a year from now, to be like, well, we're zeroing out our budget for EMS when we said we raised property taxes for it, not EMS. I can be really careful, emergency services, not just medical. But it would not be a good look for towns if a lot of people were doing that. And likely the legislature would come down on us. So could we? Yes. Should we? Probably not.
makes sense.
Let's say in 3 years, we tried this and it was a total flop and, we didn't feel like it was a good spend of money, then.
Right. And the reality is we haven't ever raised taxes, and the value of our tax dollars goes down every year due to inflation. So like, from the original time the town council started raising taxes to now, inflation has really eaten into the value of that 30,000 we've been collecting. So like,
Yeah.
unless you just basically want to eventually go down to zero, you've got to raise property taxes at some point. So last thing on this, I guess, is just to emphasize, we're gonna do this, and we've got this later on the agenda, but we're gonna do a open house in a couple of weeks. And we're gonna walk folks through the budget, where our revenues come from, how much revenues come from what. You know, property tax will still be a very small overall portion of our budget. Most of our budget comes from tourism and related plots. But that, we're gonna run through that with people in that open house, so, this will be an opportunity to keep talking about it. I think really importantly, what we haven't had the discussion yet, and I'm working with Don Diego, who's our acting fire chief, is to come in and talk to us, but why the need for this position? Which the short answer is twofold, which is one, for the last however many years, 40, 50 years, we've been relying on the goodwill of Jim Hook and Anthony Lott to put in millions, hundreds of thousands of hours of free labor. And we don't have another Anthony Lott or Jim Hook that's willing to like do all the paperwork for the fire department and so forth. There are people in the fire department that are willing to keep serving and going on calls and all that, but the actually, you know, pushing all the paperwork and everything you have to do and all the maintenance and stuff like that, there's just not someone there that's willing to do that for free right now. So if we want to keep doing, you know, having a functioning fire department, we need to help with those administrative functions. And the second is the state of Utah is now forcing us to enforce the Wildland Urban Interface Code, which involves defensible space at people's property. And that's a new thing that the state is forcing us to do. Another unfunded mandate from the state, but that again, you know, we just don't have the bandwidth to do for free in the fire department. So anyway, this position certainly won't fix everything as it relates to fire and EMS, but it's a what I would call an olive branch investment in that direction of the town doing it. But we've got to have that conversation more depth. And so Chief Diego is going to come talk to us. I just got to get her scheduled to come talk to us.
I think we also need to emphasize again that we are not looking at taking over both of these departments on our own from the county. We still want to work with the county, or hopefully we're not going to have to buy our own ambulance. Hopefully we're not going to have to buy our own fire truck. I mean, you just in our public comments earlier, those were some of the things that were addressed to us. And
absolutely, Jen. And in my view, this is an olive branch in that direction. It's showing we're willing to put some skin in the game in this. And, you know, this sales tax thing, that goes through, that should be great for the medical side of things, right? It doesn't fix the fire side, but it takes some pressure off, you know, with the medical side of things. So yeah, it certainly doesn't solve all of that, but hopefully is a good intro. Okay, so the next item is about our draft fiscal 27 budget, which we talked through in some detail in our work session last month. Again, this is new for me, but the Utah law basically says that we need to adopt a tentative budget on our first meeting in May. So in order to meet what we're supposed to do, we're supposed to adopt a tentative budget. Adopting that tentative budget doesn't mean that's what we're going to pass it in. It just says, hey, public, this is what we're seriously considering. You know, if you have concerns or whatever, make sure you come express them. So in your agenda packet, Aaron included the kind of official line by line that puts the items that we talked about in our work session on paper. And what it doesn't have, which we had in our work session, is like highlighted the changes.
No, it does not.
So, but the changes are generally what we talked about in the work session, with a couple of relatively small exceptions to that. What would you run through, Aaron, without obviously going through line by line on this?
No line by line. One thing that I will note is on whatever is approved as the tentative, I'm gonna change it from original budget to tentative budget on like the piece of paper that goes with the resolution. That's just how Polaris spits it out. So when you see original budget, just sub in tentative budget for right now. Overall, I think, one of the big ones would be the total dollar amount, in the general fund, decreasing because the recommendation, when Josh attended, some of the budgetary, information from the Utah League of Cities and Towns, they're recommending to put these special projects, or excuse me, the capital projects directly into the capital projects fund. So originally when it was presented, it was like $900,000, a little over 900, in the general fund. But that 220,000, or sorry, 270,000 is now being reflected in the capital projects fund. So that's on page 6 of the PDF that you're looking at.
Yeah, so just to highlight that. The way the town was doing it before was basically making a transfer from capital projects into the general fund. And then if you didn't spend all the money at the end of the year, you'd have to move it back into the capital fund. And the best practice that Utah League of Cities and Towns is encouraging now is just to leave both the income and the expenses on capital projects in the capital projects funds. And so that it automatically rolls over. If you don't use it, it stays in capital projects. It's not coming in and out of the general fund. So it's just a clearer accounting. And so that brings down the overall general fund, but it just makes it more clear what you're spending the money on. It's not kind of moving money back and forth each year.
Yeah, and when we talk operating expenses, we've got a cleaner operating expenses under the general fund. The only exception to this is the special projects, so the brick CCC, old school project, however you want to call it. That one is still a transfer into that because that also is not an operations fund. It is a special revenue fund, that tracks that project specifically. So that one stays as a transfer. But yeah, I think other than that, I did move just a couple dollars around, about $4,000 of what would go into the fund balance for the following year. And that was just minor adjustments based off of some of my napkin estimations on some of the new positions that we're looking at. To be a little bit more in line with like what we've paid for maintenance versus what we need. So there's like $4,000 in the fund balance. So that's something that we would love, your feedback on, public feedback on, in terms of, yep, do we want to use all of it? Maybe we want to maybe you want to put more to one of the projects that we have in here, and we can beef up some of those. But overall, no big changes except for the capital projects funding. And again, it's still there. It's just in a different category. So that would put our total balanced budget at $711,031 for next fiscal year.
So just off the top, a couple of the main things we talked about our work session that are main changes. Increasing money to Bob for promotion of the town, especially in consideration that tourism's gonna be rough with what's going on in the world right now. This, obviously the tax increase and the associated investments in emergency services. Some retirement benefits and healthcare benefits for the full-time town employees. A little bit of funding for dark skies. What's the other one that I was thinking?
Wayfinding.
The wayfinding project that we're hoping to bring in some grant money to support, but are building into the budget. Wayfinding signage that was requested from the business owners.
Also have that new, or ideally a new maintenance contract position.
Maintenance contract.
And then,
And a note taker position.
correct, that note taker position, part-time for all of those that we've listed.
So those were all things we had discussed that are, kind of baked into these numbers.
Airport's currently paying for itself, which is great. Roads department, all of that is balanced. That all looks good. The cemetery, I think a lot of it's gonna be wrapped up this fiscal year, so next fiscal year, I just kind of have matching money that, projected money in, could go to the, maintenance and expenses, for what's needed up there.
All right, any questions about the proposed tentative budget? All right, well, then our next agenda item is actually vote on that. As per the law, we're supposed to have a tentative budget. So if there's no further questions or discussion on it, we should do a roll call vote on this because it is a resolution. So Britt?
Wait, one quick thing.
Go for it.
Go, Gary.
On that, the resolution, because we're
Yep.
jumping ahead,
Yep.
I couldn't find some of the codes that are listed. I don't know if it's me but the very first one, 10-6-110. And where it says requires the town budget to file a tentative budget. That code talks about, it just says budget contents, total of revenues to equal expenditures. Has nothing to do with, that I could see, with requiring this review to be considered.
I think we took a lot of this language from the Utah League of Cities and Towns.
It's possible with code updates that it might.
Be a different section now.
And the very next one, 59-2-914-4-A-I, there is no I.
Okay.
And I couldn't find, so it didn't make sense. The very next one,
Well, that one would be a new, just passed. That just passed, so maybe that's part of it. Cause that one was part of the most recent legislative session. That first one, that's weird. Let me look at that.
you think the state
So
would be
it's-
on top of this?
So it's, you're saying the first and the second.
Yeah, the 10-6-110,
Uh-huh.
the next,
And
the one,
59.
there was no I listed on the state's page. The next one, 10-6-110-5. I couldn't find the 5, there's no 5.
That's.
The 10-6-113, that's a good one.
Okay, good.
And then under section 3, where it says UAC 105-108. I would Googling the heck out of that, trying to find it. And the only thing the state would come up with is, in context of Utah State Code, it most commonly refers to Utah Agricultural Code, but they don't even go that high.
Equipment at 101 with them, so it's only 211. File the tentative budget, tentative budget to be prepared, estimate of expenditures. Okay, so the first one is 111, yeah,
111 instead of 110.
yep, and then the next. Is probably in that same one. So here's the budget officer shall, in accordance with subsection 1B, prepare this. And then the next one, town council is required to adopt it. Explains the budget, governing body in a regular meeting shall review, consider, and tentatively adopt. So the next one is gonna be the same one, so that, and then subsection
106-3, yeah. I think the league just got their numbers on it.
So this one's gonna be 3, and I'm just gonna leave
3A?
it 3. Oh,
Yeah,
did you
just
do 3A?
No, it's 3.
Okay. So section 3, and then the next one. You said it, it's currently referencing 113. Yep, so that one's correct,
113 is right.
okay,
Yeah.
and then those are the references, right? And what was the other one you said, Gary? Oh, requirement,
Okay, so backing up, the 59-919, what's the correct one on that one? 19. The 2, 3, third whereas.
Are you looking at a different one than this?
Let me stop sharing my find.
Can you see Gary?
Two 59, 19,
Oh, so
That's not.
this is not the one that I printed? Okay, so 59, so this one is stated in a separate item, so this is the new one this year, so that. I'm not sure where we're gonna find, let's see. Malia, would you do me a huge favor and go grab this off the printer for me? Thanks.
I mean, it is 59. Nine, 291.
219, notice and public hearing requirements for certain tax increases.
Then if you go down to 4A,
4A1. Except as provided in section 5, a fiscal year taxing entity may levy a tax that exceeds the fiscal year. So you're saying that there's just no off, it just needs to be the 4, it just needs to reference the 4A.
I guess if that's what you're meaning, I don't know.
Not required. State of separate line of budget. Yeah, they must have just. Okay. Do you want to come back to this while I find the right references and? You guys can talk about this stuff while I find the right references and just move it down on the agenda.
You know what I suggest that we do, out of simplicity, is we cut out all the whereas statements. Cause like these, it is what we need to do, but like, there's no reason we have to have the whereases in our resolution. You know what I mean? The resolute, we're passing the adopted budget, there's nothing in the law that says you have to have whereases in your resolution. You know, like the whereases. Right, the whereases help explain why you're doing what you're doing, but like. We know the law says we have to have a tentative budget, we're adopting a tentative budget, we don't have to say. Which subsection, you know what I mean, like,
Or you could just say it's required under Utah code and not reference it.
yeah. Like, instead of referencing the specific code,
Just say it's required under Utah code to adopt the tentative budget.
yeah, because we just saw that, it's, you know, we just.
Well, and it clearly is moving around a lot because they've made so many
They've
changes.
moved it around so much.
Like not trying to pass it up or anything, but like.
Yeah, I mean,
Say,
that would be mine, it's just like get rid of the whereas. It doesn't mean that we didn't meet the requirement, just because we don't have the whereas.
See. I would maybe push just to say, just reference the Utah state code and keep the whereas.
Keep the whereases, but just say Utah code,
Yeah.
whereas Utah code says this, Utah code says that, rather than using the exact references.
Because clearly it's changed like literally in the last 2 weeks as they've been updating
Yeah,
on our reference.
Last question, what does UAC stand for in section 3?
Utah adopted code. Do you want to just set it? So do the same, set out in Utah code.
I don't know, Gary
Yeah.
just couldn't find it.
Gary, you didn't find that one. Okay, so set out in Utah code. You guys good with that? Okay, good.
I'd feel better if I had code numbers than just Utah code.
I can go through and I can find them before.
Okay, if you wanna do that, yeah. Sorry. Maybe in the future, we'll try not to make specific references, cause like, I don't understand, there's no reason why we need to have them other than.
It just makes more sense to someone looking in to see the code number. If they have a question, they can look it up and say, yeah, they're not trying to pull anything on us or.
Say for the time it's, I mean, that is, I guess the issue that is like, those numbers change. And so it's kind of, I mean, at the time of that you pass the resolution, you're absolutely right. They should be 100% correct. But that Utah code does change.
All right, we'll come back to that. I mean, we're legally required to pass something tonight, so we're gonna be here until we're until we have something passed. We can look it up. So the open house that we've talked about, the idea with this is to provide the public a way to kind of learn about the budget that is and answer questions and provide feedback to us that's like less formal than a public hearing or having them come and say your 3-minute piece or whatever. You can actually ask some questions and have it back and forth. So the idea is that we would have a presentation up front that Aaron and I would work on that would have some basics like where does our revenue come from? And it would be a pie chart that shows, it comes from sales tax and treatment and property tax and, where does it come from? Some of the basics like what we spend our money on, those sort of things. So a present, like an educational presentation, probably 15-20 minutes. If we go much longer than that, and people will lose interest, but like a short presentation. And then have some breakout groups throughout the room where people can come around and talk to people about different topics. So, for example, trying to see if Dawn will come and Dawn and I could answer questions about fire department and this EMS stuff. And then it'd be great if like Malia and a council member could be there to answer questions about the brick project and all the, $270,000 that we have in there on that. Now I was thinking good for us to have a breakout that's kind of like business related stuff. So maybe Jen, maybe if you would be willing to be there, but to kind of talk about the wayfinding thing and the Bob promotion and some of those items. So my thought would be that we would have those breakouts and spread out council members among the breakouts to talk about different pieces. And it's just to take feedback, to answer questions, to talk to people about what's proposed in the budget. So the idea would be we do this 19th, so 2 weeks from today, but after our normal meeting. So we'd have a double header that night, starting at 6 a.m. to approximately 7:30. So if y'all are good with that, I actually started working this last week on a little flyer, and we'll get a flyer out and we'll get it out in email, all that kind of stuff. And so the other piece is to try to figure out, and we can talk about this in our work session a little bit next week, but if we could think through the different breakouts that we want to have and who might be willing to be at the different breakouts. So yeah, I just mentioned the ones I was thinking, kind of a business one, maybe Jen, you're willing to do that. It's kind of a fire emergency services one. I'm thinking maybe Dawn and I could do. There's some, I was thinking we could do a dark skies type thing, or maybe mix dark skies in with something else kind of quality of life oriented. I think Sarah's willing to come and talk dark skies thing. There's the brick, which Malia would do, which we want to have a council member on. Maybe Britt, you could do that since you're on the design review committee there.
Yeah. So
Does anybody have other ideas for like topic areas, breakouts? You don't have to have one per council member or whatever, like other council members can kind of roam around. We could do one on secondary water and have, Patrick come and maybe you could be there. and we could-
I think that since that's such a, I mean, we do have a pretty substantial amount of money proposed to go to that. I think it would be nice just for the public to kind of hear some of the things to spend this money. I mean, that's kind of how I would look at it. If you look at the things that we are significantly increasing on the budget this year, I think that those are the things that we would kind of want to address in a session like this. So yes, we've significantly increased the amount of money that we're putting towards business promotion. So I think that's kind of a good thing, is to just here's what we're talking about increasing money on, and here's what.
Maybe we could have also just kind of a general questions about the budget that you, Aaron, could kind of be the lead on. If we had 5 breakouts, 1 is secondary water, 2 is like business. Oh, the other one I was thinking was roads, because roads is a big part of the budget. We could have Michael there to answer questions and to take pieces. So that would actually make 6 little breakouts that people can go around. Secondary water, business, brick, fire, EMS, general, and roads. And so, I guess maybe you could join Michael at the roads one.
Or on the dark sky.
Or dark sky.
Yeah.
What could we combine dark sky with the business?
You get me on my soapbox, yes.
Well, just like, I think honestly, it's a pretty small amount of money on its own to have its own breakout
Yeah, no,
session.
I agree,
So
yeah.
we could like,
I mean, I think that, yes, I could definitely incorporate astrotourism into a business thing.
so what I'm thinking is, who are the people outside of our group that we need to coordinate with? So we would have, if we're gonna do the secondary water one, we have to see if Patrick can be
Right.
there that night. So we gotta get a hold of Patrick. And then,
Michael.
Michael on the roads,
Chief DeLego.
Dawn. Right. And then Sarah maybe on dark skies.
I ideally would love to have Diana involved in that. That's going to incorporate, I mean, because Diana takes care of the Bob marketing. Really, but that's gonna coordinate a Zoom call because she won't. I don't think she'll still be here by the 19th.
So can we break up responsibilities? Can I ask Gary, would you get a hold of Patrick? Let's see if he can be there.
Yep.
And then. Can you get a hold of Diana?
If she can't join us by Zoom, then I'll have her at least give me a rundown on.
Well, cause
what
she's out of
exactly?
town, right?
She's in town right now,
Oh.
but she won't be by the 19th, I don't think.
Cause I don't know how you do Zoom in.
No,
in
no,
this
I don't
sort
think
of,
you can, but she could give me, she's very adept at running off spreadsheets on how Bob is taking care of marketing right now.
Okay, well, if you can coordinate with her and Sarah, maybe,
Mhm, mhm.
I will talk to Dawn. We've got the brick covered with, Britt and Malia,
I could talk to Michael.
and if you can talk to Michael. Make sure he can be there. And then we'll just have to decide if Patrick can't come, do we just still do a secondary water, maybe not, like we'll have to decide, we can decide that at our next meeting. Or if Michael can be there, for example, do we really wanna do roads without Michael? So it might be that 1 or 2 of these,
Might be kind of nice. I know, well, Kristen might not be able to come. I was gonna say it might be nice to do a building one as well. I know that Kristen is gonna be absolutely swamped on the 19th, so.
I received feedback from her that she, unless otherwise stated, would like to stick to her defined job duties.
Mhm.
And therefore potentially our new building inspector could
Yeah, that's
come
a
join.
good-
It would be a good way to meet the public.
yeah. I guess I lean toward I think eventually we need to do more of like a building open house, like
Yeah.
building department open house, and so I kind of lean toward. It's not a huge part of the budget and it's not a new part of the budget. I kind of lean towards saving that. He's on board and
Yeah, I just thought it would be a nice way to say, hey, look, you know, I mean, here are what, you know, I mean, here are the things that we would like you to get a building. You know,
I think we should do that. I just like, I'm not sure if it's necessarily the budget. Open house, maybe it's, I think it's probably better as its own deal.
I really like this, this format, this idea of a format. It's been something that I've been craving since before I even ran for office was how can we just get everybody in the same room and have open conversations without, you know, being part of a meeting?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be good to take questions and all that. Okay, well, that's a good game plan. Let's talk to the people that we said we'd talk to, and then at our work session next week, we'll nail down what the breakouts will be, that sort of thing. Okay, the agenda item number 12, wanted to kind of bring to your attention, that, Councilmember Haas now has started a nonprofit, Hoso Horse Haven. Am I saying that right? And one of the big things is when we have to round up horses here, being able to put them up, get them adopted out, taken out, and they need to be fed and that sort of thing. And there's costs associated with that nonprofit. For those who have been here before, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but in the past, we had the sheriff's department come down and round up horses, and then the sheriff's department invoiced us for some costs associated with that. What we're proposing is that the town cover some of the Hoso Horse Haven's costs of housing the animals and so forth.
Well, what we're actually proposing is just the roundup. The nonprofit hopefully will take care of the feeding, the vet bills, the housing of them. Just that initial roundup, which the county was billing us for, is the only thing that the business would be looking for, maybe a reimbursement from the town.
Got it.
Just that.
Sorry, I got that wrong.
Yeah, not all that other stuff.
Not all the other stuff. So just so basically.
Unless
just
you want
well, I think it'd be worth us thinking about in the future, but just what we would have necessarily been charging to the.
Correct.
Getting the county in charge, reimbursing. So it's not very much money. I think it was $400 was, the invoice. We have money in our enforcement line item, you know, the idea that we would pay some money to the sheriffs to do this. So we have money in the budget. My inclination is to do it, but we wanted in an open public meeting to say, because the nonprofit is affiliated with a council member, that just, you know, everybody's good with it. So I don't think it's a big deal, but wanted to be super transparent that that's kind of our intention. Anybody have any concerns with that? I think it's like incredible service.
I think the way we need to approach that rather is that it would be in dealing with the public nuisance rather than. As if I'm correct, we still haven't passed our animal ordinance.
Yeah, right.
So we would have to look at it as being a public nuisance, so.
And we have the money in that budget line item, I think that we can apply to it. So I don't think we need to take a vote or anything. I just wanted it to be like very transparent to the public and to the other council members and so forth. And then thanks to Carrie and for that really important work.
Until I get kicked.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, you mean one of those derpy people who just walks behind the horses without any food?
No. Not brave.
On a reminder, so we are gonna do a special meeting like we talked about, 5 o'clock Thursday. Is it okay if folks do that electronically, Malia?
For sure. Planning and zoning starts at 6. So.
Okay. So we either come over here or jump on electronically, but we'll deal with awarding those contracts so that Malia can keep all that process moving. That'll be up Thursday at 5 o'clock.
I also, since we were not able to do the roads manifest, today, I am wondering if the council would be open to tacking on a special meeting at some point after the work session. May 12th, the landowner would be available to come down in person, and that was his preference, that he wanted to be here in person, talking about that transfer of the Copper Cliffs to those.
So we could just add that on with the work session.
Yeah, it has to be noticed as a separate meeting, but I'll be able to vote. I don't think it should take like any extra time, but maybe like 5:15 or something.
Yeah, I think that's a smart way to do it. We want to get that road manifest done. There's no real policy debate here. We've all talked about taking these roads in, so I think it'll be fast, so I'm good with that. Folks are, okay.
Thank you all.
I got two other just others to let you guys know about, before we go back to the budget. I received some outreach from the Wildlands Conservancy. They're the folks that own the land up in Cottonwood. They are going to apply for a grant from the state to do some planning for a trail back there, which obviously be I think good for the town. And they've just asked for a letter of support. So nothing else at this time other than a letter of support. So my inclination is to just go ahead and do that as mayor, sign a letter of support. But per our discussion earlier, just letting folks know ideally before the letters are written that that's happening in case anybody has a concern about that. So if no one has concern about it, get that letter of support. And then one other thing is, Utah State University is going to host a meeting on the 19th, so it's going to be a big day, but on May 19th, to talk about how the university can help with workforce development and training for the hospitality industry. It is going to be at 10 o'clock in the morning that morning up at USU. It's not something that anybody has to go to. I'm going to go. I think Aaron's going to go. I reached out to Almer and he said he could make it. So if we could have a few representatives from the business community, I think my wife Kirsten's going to go representing Bluff, that would be great. But USU is just wanting to improve, create some curriculum and training pipeline for the hospitality industry. So I just got the text while we were in the meeting that the time, and I'll share the formal invite with you all, but thought I'd let y'all know that. I just swallowed the fanatic.
You just perfect segue to my other. Oh.
Other. Oh, for it.
It's kind of funny because Aaron and I were just discussing mosquito abatement when we were discussing some budget items the other day. And then I've had, since that conversation, I've had several people asking me about mosquito abatement since, you've all noticed, but in the last 5 days or so, the mosquitoes are up. So I just wanted to go over how do we tell people do we want people to approach you, Malia, about getting pellets I don't even know where to put pellets right now because quite honestly, I don't know where there's standing water, but
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like right now, it's just
Email.
like all of them are just in little hidden pockets where it's like not on people's properties.
yeah, I don't. We haven't had a significant amount of rain lately,
What I'll probably need to do is just some trapping and species identification and then figure out what to go from there, so. Some serious science ahead of me.
if you need help with that, please, that was kind of my other thing. I just had people approach me about, what are we doing for mosquito abatement?
Yeah, if people do need pellets and they have standing water that they know of, contact me. Otherwise, I'll do some science.
Okay.
And we have a supply, town
We
supply,
have,
some of the.
yeah, we have pellets.
Yes, we have pellets and it is actually included, I believe we put in the budget for next year is to increase because we do need to purchase some more pellets, different things.
I dropped it back down. Do we need to increase it again?
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, we're
Well,
talking about
say,
taking it out altogether.
adopted
but-
tentative. If you wanna amend it, I think, yeah, I was hoping that we would get them donated again, but. Malia,
Yeah, I'll continue doing some.
say, how much would you want to have, if any?
1,000?
My thought is like that kind of small thing, we can just put in the adopted, when we actually adopt the budget, but let's keep a list of those that we need to change. We don't need to do that in the tentative budget, I don't think, for that small of an item. All right, how have you been doing in finding the citations?
Alrighty.
Think you got them all?
Share my screen with you. So here's what happened. So it does look like something did shift with our current references. So, oh no, I hate it when this is up here. Move. There we go. All right, so in order, starting at the beginning. First one's correct. First whereas is correct. 10-6-101 references the Utah Uniform Fiscal Procedures Code.
So,
Number 2, it just shifted one from 110 to 111. It talks all about the tentative budget, the budget officer and their responsibilities. Your third whereas, Gary is completely correct. So that is a new code that is going to go into effect next year. So we were following the best practices that were not required this year, but were best practices, which includes all this. So I have in my document removed the code and just said budget officer Mayor Ewing has stated as a separate item, blah, 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 and remove the code, that other 59, because again, that's gonna be next year's code, not this year's code, which I do wonder if the 110 is actually gonna be 110 next year instead of this year. But for how it passes right now, 10-6-111 is correct. And there is no law that asks Mayor Ewing to do this, but it is something that he did, therefore it's still valid. Therefore, the next whereas continues to be 111 as opposed to 110. 113 was accurate, yay. Then we're not referencing anything. There is code that like the town recorder should be doing these things, but we're not referencing any of it. Then moving on to section 3 in the therefores, I missed or someone missed a dash. It's actually 10-5-108. Which, when you go back there, 10-5-108. Where did you go? Must be the last one I selected. Here we are. It's about the budget hearing and notices, and therefore that one is correct with the addition of a dash. So thank you for your detail oriented.
We gotta correct it. They live in real time too.
I will note, I also did make the adjustment to the heading of it. We're just going to reference Utah code 10-6 as opposed to 10-6-100 because 10-6 is everything to do with the budget. So that you would also see adjusted at the top. Utah code 10-6. But that also gets into setting the time and place for a public hearing for your budget. And so I did want to make sure we touched on that, confirmed that before y'all made any motions. So,
Well, the public hearing, we have to coordinate with the county.
sorry, public hearing for the budget,
Oh, for the
which has to be
budget, okay.
conducted in June. I suggested that maybe you do it the first meeting in June, which would
Alright.
be Tuesday, June 3rd at 4 p.m. And then you would go into your regularly scheduled meeting.
Yeah, I'm of the mind to just do it early. We have to do it in June, do it early, get it done.
Sorry, June 2nd. Thanks, Jen. Oh, God. Okay, everyone else checked everything else, right? Tuesday, June 2nd at 4 p.m. Okay.
I am very appreciative for the detail-oriented nature of our council. Team effort here.
Definitely.
Team effort is small team effort in Bluff. Okay. You feel good about it?
That's fine.
All right, we're gonna go back to agenda item number 9 and do a roll call vote on resolution 103, which is adopting our tentative fiscal 2027 budget. Good?
Yay.
Yeah.
Josh, yes?
Yes.
Ken, yes?
Yes.
Very nice. Okay. All right, we have approved our tentative budget and with no others. We will call it an adjournment and thank you for all of your attention tonight. And we're calling it at 5:45.
Great, thanks, folks.